That's it. It's over. The teardown is done. He's down to his bones, except for this front end. And this is the bit that doesn't want to end. It turned into an absolute nightmare. The controls came off in a previous video. Cables, switches that stopped switching a long time ago. That is how he was told where to go. Every instruction he ever received came down those wires and levers, and every one of them is now lying on a bench in a labelled bag. He has no steering, none. He couldn't be pointed anywhere if you asked him to. Though, in fairness, he hasn't been pointed anywhere useful in 20 years. These are the parts that did the thinking. Everything he was ever asked to do came from here. 2 grips, 4 instructions, nothing else. Left hand, the gear selector, 2 cables running down into him, and between them they decided how hard he worked. The right hand, throttle in the front brake, faster or stop. That's the entire argument. It's a remarkably small amount of equipment for the job it was doing. Inside is what you would expect. Old grease that has stopped being grease. A fine grey dust that gets everywhere but belongs to nothing. All this needs to come apart now, get cleaned and go back in the same order it came out. I think it's time to invest in a manual. 8 of these now. He came here whole, filthy and finished, but not much use to anyone, but he was whole. He is now spread across most of the shed, in bags in the order it came apart. Every one of them labelled by a man who does not entirely trust his own memory. There's a strange thing that happens when you take something to pieces slowly enough. You stop seeing a scooter. You start seeing the decisions somebody made in a factory in Italy. And every one of them has a reason. You don't find out what that reason is until you take it off. None of this was ever meant to be watched, but it has been, consistently, by people who could quite reasonably be doing something different. So, thanks for watching, genuinely. It's quite a thing, and it's been better company than expected. Everything on him was designed to be taken apart. It just wasn't designed to be taken apart now. Somebody drew this. Somebody sat down and decided this was the sensible way to do it. And they were right at the time. There's a logic to how he's put together. It reveals itself roughly 10 minutes after it would have been useful. This is the part of him that pointed. Everything else just followed. It's a simple arrangement. 2 bearings, a column, and a lot of thrust. Some of you may be wondering why this video is not about the engine cases. The 2 halves bolted shut since the factory, with the whole of them inside, the crank, the bearings, everything that decides whether any of it is worth doing. That's the last door in the building, and unfortunately it stays shut just now. Not because he's fighting it, for once he isn't. He's ready. The tools that open it are somewhere between here and where they were sent from. A puller and an extractor, currently unaccounted for, in the care of a company that has confirmed that they no longer know where they are. So he sits, almost stripped to nothing, waiting on a van. He's waited longer for less. Now the main column. Apparently there is a correct order to this, a sequence somebody worked out a long time ago and wrote it down and put it in a book. I did not follow it. Not out of confidence, but out of not knowing there was one until I was already halfway through. So this takes longer than it should. Things came off that didn't need to come off yet. Things that should have come off first came off third. It works eventually. That's not the same as it being right though. So these are not coming out, not with anything that could reasonably be described as a technique, which means this has to come back out. The drill. It's been here before. It was here in the beginning, on the seat rack, when we still thought it was going to be the worst of it. It's not been used often. It's never been once used optimistically. There is no negotiating at this stage. What's left of the screw heads get removed, and then what's left of the threads get removed, and then the fastener stops existing. It's the last option there is, and it only goes one way. Every one of these was fitted by somebody who assumed it would come out again. They were nearly right. WD-40 makes a return, though not for the reasons it usually does. It's been recommended to me by a great many people, and to be fair to all of you, it has earned its keep. It got the pivot bolt out, it never got these out, so it got a lesser job, demoted from solution to lubricant. With the mudguard weakened at last, the ancient brake cable, long dormant, wrapped in rust and dust, it now begins its slow migration out of the guard, coaxing it through the narrow passage that has been occupied for years. Every inch gained is a small victory, and every snag a reminder of the Vespa's long hibernation. Here, the caliper appears ready to be removed, until a sudden realisation it cannot be freed while the wheel remains in place. But in this environment, progress rarely follows a perfect plan. And so, despite this little setback, the work continues. A gentle tug here, a hopeful twist there, some more WD-40 as I attempt to coax the caliper loose, regardless. It's a moment familiar to all who venture into mechanical habitats. The quiet acceptance that sometimes you just have to carry on. With the bolts loosened, the caliper should, in theory, surrender, but in this shed, theory rarely survives contact with reality. Instead, the caliper digs in, resting with a strength far beyond its size. It twists and it shifts, but it refuses to release its grip. A final act of defiance from a rip that has weathered years of grime, pressure and neglect. Applying patience, leverage and just a hint of frustration, until at last the caliper yields. With the rotten screws drilled out, I presumed the mudguard would free, but it's not yet willing to surrender. It clings to the fork with the last of its ancient strength, fused by rust, pressure and years of quiet defiance. Now begins the final test. No more precision tools, no more gentle persuasion. only leverage, instinct, and a bit of resolve. Every creak and every shift, every tiny movement signals the beginning of its release. At last, the mudgard breaks free. A rare moment of triumph in the shed. But as it rises, another truth reveals itself. The bearing remains firmly in place, still gripping the fork with quiet authority. It's a reminder that in this mechanical habitat, no victory is ever complete. I have to pause and reassess and return to the task, for the mudgard cannot truly depart until the bearing itself is persuaded to let go. And so, the work continues, not with frustration, but with a calm acceptance. I should have bought a manual. To the bin with you. With the bearing removed at last, the mudgard is finally free, no longer clinging to the fork, no longer resisting my efforts. Beside the stripped frame, it shall take its place, a fallen companion awaiting transformation. Soon it will travel beyond the shed to the sandblaster's domain. With the mudgard finally set aside, the fork now stands exposed, a structure long hidden from sight. Every mark, every patch of rust, every scar now tells a quiet story of years spent beneath the guard's protection. Before the wheel reveals its true resistance, there is a moment of grace. A single bolt, aged, remarkably clean, but marked by years of service, loosens without hesitation. It never struggled. It simply turns, as though recognising the intent of choosing to step aside. In the shed, such moments feel almost mythic. A small act of surrender, from a piece of metal offering passage before the greater challenge ahead. With the circlip removed, I allow myself a moment of optimism. Surely now, the wheel will slide off with elegance, perhaps even gratitude. But it has other plans. It remained absolutely motionless, as if it said, "Aye, you got the circlip, that was just a warm-up." Fooled by its initial cooperation, I had nothing left but to bring out the mallet and absolutely hammer the thing till it released. With the wheel released, we can inspect the exposed surfaces. Years of standing still have left their mark. Corrosion forming in predictable patterns along the hub. Dust compacted into fine layers around the bearing seat, and moisture traces etched into the metal like slow moving tide lines. With the disc bolts removed, I fully expected the brake disc to lift away cleanly. It should by all accounts simply fall off into my hands, but the disc has been seated for years, and it refuses to leave without a final gesture. Not a battle, just a reminder. A slight bond of corrosion, a faint grip of time. So the tapometer is summoned once again, not in anger, but in ceremony. I take a look at the brake pads, or rather, the memory of them. Once responsible for stopping the machine with precision, they've worn themselves down to almost nothing. It's a rare sight. Pads that have not merely thinned, but retired. They've given every fibre, every grain, every last molecule to the cause. I get a proper look at the wheel. I'm still not convinced we should get these repaired. The jury's still out. I now turn to the shock. A sentinel that has stood its post for years beyond its prime. Its paint is faded, the spring is clearly weary, and its seals have probably long surrendered to time. Unbolting it feels less like dismantling a part and more like releasing a guardian from duty. The metal creaks as though exhaling after a lifetime of holding this machine upright. When the shock finally lifts free, it carries the quiet dignity of something that has endured. In this shed light, it feels almost ceremonial, a relic, stepping aside so the Vespa may rise anew. Although the shock does lift free with quiet ceremony, it is worth noting that not all battles were witnessed. Some of these bolts, long fused by the rust and time, required persuasion of a more private nature. Off camera, I engaged in a quiet war, more penetrating oil, leverage, and muttered negotiations. By the time the lens returned, the bolts did surrender, but their struggle remains part of the sheds unseen. The fight's too gritty and too sweary for the main tale. In the bin with you. Rip always leaves a trail behind him, not of destruction, but of truth. Every crumble of corrosion, every shard of grime, and every flake of metal is a record of the years he stood still. The bench becomes a map of his past. With the final pieces stripped down to their bare bones, Rip stands quiet on the bench. The battle of the front end has left its trail, rust, grime, and the honest remains of years spent unmoving. But in the stillness, something shifts. The old machine seems to accept the idea that the road might call to him again. It's not guaranteed. There are choices ahead, parts to judge, work still to be done. Yet for tonight, for the first time in a long time, he's one real step closer.